everybody, today I wanted to continue on with my videos about my experience in Portugal. If you missed the other ones that I have done, you can find them in the eye above. I have videos about how I learned to speak fluent Portuguese, as well as how I moved to Portugal in the first place. Today, however, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of my habits that I had while I was in Portugal. There are a lot of things that can be different about where you end up versus where you come from, and those can be small things like the way that people stand in line, or they can be bigger things like how they structure their whole day. And that's very much the case, generally speaking, between the United States and Portugal, as well as the rest of Europe. We have a lot of differences, and there are a lot of little things that you have to tweak in your day-to-day in order to fit in and have a more comfortable time while you're there, whether you're there for the short term or the long term. So as some of you may know, I love to eat, and a lot of you came to my channel from the video I did about Portuguese sweets. If you haven't, I suggest that you watch that because I consider that to be one of Portugal's best kept secrets. It's not something that we know a lot about in the United States, but it is something that once you go there, you discover that they are really good. And for me, that also helped me do a lot of things that took me out of my comfort zone and helped me to integrate. When I first moved to Portugal and I was getting used to the way that people work, the way that people did their business, and all of those day-to-day sort of affairs, once I discovered how delicious Portuguese pastries were, I made a point to go out and get a coffee just about every day. Coffee in Portugal is particularly cheap. In Lisbon, you'll pay about 85 cents. Could be more, could be less, depending on where you're going, but in general, an espresso in Lisbon won't set you back very far. So it's easy to have a coffee out, and I did that just about every day. But the thing is, at most places where you can get coffee, there's also a wide variety of pastries to choose from. And me, not knowing very much about them or their names, took it upon myself to try every single one of them, at least over time. This helped me do a lot of things that helped form habits that helped me to integrate as an immigrant, because there's a lot that goes into ordering not just a coffee, but a pastry, especially if you don't know the name of it. As I was learning Portuguese, I had to do a lot of things that broke my fear of making mistakes and not being understood and not understanding the people that were talking to me, and this was one of the easiest ways that I did that. Because I had the interest in getting a pastry, I also recognized it as an opportunity to talk to either the people working behind the counter or the people around me, whether that was by asking what they preferred, or asking what something was called, or asking what was in one of the pastries. There is always a question you can ask, and there was always something new for me to try. So there was never any limit to these little interactions that I could have that would build my confidence in speaking Portuguese, as well as doing these things. It also shows a lot about some of the differences between ordering food in the United States versus in Portugal. Whereas in the United States, we're used to having a fixed menu that you take your time looking at, you know exactly what they have in any given place because it's on a menu that you can read, and you don't have to ask about anything. In Portugal, menus are not quite as common, and generally speaking, you should just know what you want when you go somewhere. And so if you don't know what you want, you're gonna have to do some talking in order to figure out what you want from that place. Either way, it's a pretty big difference to the automated way that we're used to things in the US. Another habit that I had helped keep things fresh for me in Lisbon, and also let me get to know the city, but it helped in some surprising ways as well, and that was walking around the city. I would take walks around all different neighborhoods and all different corners of the city, but also deliberately making sure to walk on streets that I had never been on, and taking a moment to be observant about the places that I was going. Not just walking head down on my phone, but also like looking at the stores and the places around me. This was great for keeping Lisbon fresh for me and discovering new places, but that also led to me having more places that I could suggest to go with friends of mine, and also help keep my sociability fresh, which is sort of like a feedback loop that helps you plant your roots. On the one hand, you become more of a local because you know more about the place that you're in, and you don't get stuck in your routine of just going to the same places, either because they're convenient or they're nearby. And on the other hand, you can also share that knowledge with other people. That was one of the things that I did to greatest effect in Lisbon, and by the time I left the city, a lot of my friends from there would often say that I knew the city better than even they did. This also extends to going out. European cities are of course denser and easier to walk around than American cities, and that is also true in terms of going out. Because you're not worried about getting in a car, the logistics of parking, going out for a casual drink with friends is also a lot easier, and in Lisbon especially, because in Lisbon things are very casual. Bars are very small in Lisbon and don't tend to have a lot of seating, so people take their drinks outside and socialize on the streets. On the weekends in some parts of Lisbon, the streets get so full that you can barely walk around them, but it is a very unique atmosphere, and it's a great way to unexpectedly meet new people, whether that's people that you or your friends run into or just by happenstance. However, in terms of integrating myself, there are some differences in particular between Portugal and the US that I noted and got used to when I was there. In the US, people are really punctual, and they will send you a message or call you if they're running 10 minutes late. However, in Portugal and much of Southern Europe, that is very much not the case. Work is an exception, but that's a different story for a different day. It's not uncommon to wait 15 or 20 minutes for your friends to show up, and it's not super rude either, so you don't have to stress yourself out about being 5 minutes early like you might in the US. Another one of the differences between Portuguese people and American people that I noticed is the way that we are sociable. In the United States, it's pretty easy to strike up a conversation with any random person in a public setting. If you're in line at a grocery store, it's not uncommon to start a conversation with the person behind you or in front of you. It's not uncommon to talk with your cashiers. It's not uncommon to talk to all sorts of people out in public. In Portugal, this is a little bit less common, and although Portuguese people are very friendly to people who are visiting, I found that they tend to be a little bit more reserved when it comes to making closer or friends with people than Americans or even Brazilians might be. But that is also a bigger subject for another time and another place. That is all I've got for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you might think about giving it a thumbs up, and you might subscribe to my channel if you're not already. I have a bunch of other videos about my Portuguese experience that you can find in the eye above. I make videos about food, culture, and the Portuguese language, which you can all find on my channel, and I will see you next time.